Alright, another Monday, another week ahead. And as per usual, I want to thank all of you supporting me with a YouTube membership or a Twitch sub. I'll be back to streaming soon, although I might play a bit of Throne and Liberty, which has me hooked since the early access launched last week. Tomorrow, the World v World Rush event will end, and if you haven't yet, go and run around with a Zerg for about an hour. Completing all 10 tiers of the achievement is really quick, and you'll get 150 reward track progress for it, which is almost 2 full reward tracks. The 20% off backslot sale will conclude as well, and like last week, the end of current events will just lead in a new one. Tomorrow, the Return to Living World Season 4 bonus event will kick off, and if any of the other events have been an indication, this will be a great way to get some daily Mystic coins and do some easy achievements if you still need them for your Skyscale or the Legendary Trinket. And let's take a look at Mystic coins while we're on the subject. I haven't talked about them too much lately, but over the past month their price rose by about 5%. Ever since the Wizard's Vault was introduced, they seem to be following a pattern of dropping as new supply becomes available before slowly climbing back up. The next time we get a Vault refresh, however, we also get the Legendary Spear, so it remains to be seen whether they'll continue following the cycle or whether people will want to keep them for themselves. Ectos seem to have found their footing in that mid-30 silver price range. The same remarks as for Mystic coins applies to them, as we'll probably need about a stack for the new legendary in the form of Mystic Clovers. Unless ArenaNet lets us get away with only needing 38 like we did for the Generation 3 ones. I personally think that is rather unlikely though, as the Generation 3 also had variants to account for, which I don't think we'll see this time around. When Ectos go down, Crystalline Dust goes down as well, since the best way of getting some is by salvaging Ectos. If you're looking at selling Ectos, it is still better to salvage them with the Silver-Fed Salvage-o-Matic or the equivalent kits, or even with the Runecrafters though. Last week, the demand for all 3 rarities of Unidentified Gear fell off a cliff. Generally, blues are mostly sought after when their cost is lower than the base materials, greens when their cost is lower than the upgrades, and yellows when their cost is lower than Ectos, keeping all 3's respective salvage rates in mind. The yellow, for example, has about a 75% chance of giving you an Ecto, so they should never be worth more than the price of an Ecto itself. Greens are harder to explain, as you'll need to take the upgrade salvage rate into account, and there are actually 7 different outcomes to complicate matters further, and people with the endless upgrade extractor can then also decide to sell the leftover green to a vendor for silver or salvage them for materials. All 3's demand plummeting this hard makes me think that there is more at play here. I haven't seen any mentions of ArenaNet doling out new bans for people macroing, but whatever the reason is, it is enough to pull down the price of them as well. If you're following my Ecto farming and crafting guides, nothing changed in how you should be processing them though. Blues and yellows are the easiest, as they can be processed with either Salvage-o-Matics or with the in-game free equivalent salvage kits. But there is no free in-game alternative to the Runecrafter Salvage-o-Matic. So if you don't own that one, you're better off selling the greens on the trading post directly. If you're now wondering whether you should go and spend gems on the Runecrafters, the answer is most likely no. You'll make 67 copper extra by using a Runecrafter, and since it costs 600 gems, you'll be paying about 250 gold for it. That means that you would need to salvage more than 37,000 greens, or about 150 stacks to break even, assuming all prices stay the same of course. Now, if you're following my Ecto farming guide, you can probably break even in about half a year. If you're not specifically farming for them, it'll probably take you a good while longer, so it ultimately comes down to what you want to invest your time into. Also a quick update on Ecto crafting, as this has become wildly profitable once more. For the uninitiated, you can basically craft certain pieces of yellow gear for profit by salvaging them into Ectos, assuming of course that the price of an Ecto is enough to compensate for the salvage rate. There's a full guide in the pinned comment and a spreadsheet on our Discord that will help you choose which item to craft. Last week, I also talked about the Charm of Skill and the Symbol of Control, which both can be obtained by salvaging upgrades like the ones from green units. And I mentioned that there was something weird going on with the orders. For the Charm of Skill, it looked like a huge sell order filled, but that it would be far more likely that it was actually a cancelled listing instead, since GW to BLTC cannot differentiate between the two. Now that a couple of days have passed, the situation looks even weirder. If this isn't a bug, it looks like someone listed so many of them that they effectively doubled the supply and then cancelled the order again. There was no spike in sales at lower prices afterwards, so I don't necessarily think this is someone trying to manipulate the price. It also doesn't make sense why someone would pay the listing fee, which would have come down to just under 500 gold for this, just to cancel the order again. So a bug on the website does seem like the most plausible answer, but I guess we won't find out unless someone comes forward. A couple of days later, the opposite happens for the symbol of control, but this one looks more like someone cancelling a massive buy order, which is far easier to explain. Most of us will never run into the issue of hitting gold cap, and therefore won't be aware that you can only hold 200,000 gold in your wallet at any given time. An easy way to exceed this limit without having to buy items that you hope will maintain their price is to list buy orders on the trading post. This will effectively stash your gold on the TP, and you can then simply cancel those orders when you need your gold again. It finally looks like Janthir Wild materials also found their footing, as they remained relatively stable over the past week. Despite their price dropping from 20 to 8 or 9 silver, I am still a fan of farming honey flowers. There are usually 3 or 4 IPs I can map hop to during prime time in the EU, which means an easy 25 gold in a relatively short time span. Mersad runestones are also slowly creeping back up to 90 silver, with their supply remaining steady while the demand keeps increasing. It's hard to see on the graph, but the demand actually rose from about 38k to 45 over the past week. My advice for these is still the same as in my legendary prep guide. Just hang on to them until the next update releases. People will probably rush the TP for them as soon as you can craft a legendary spear, making that an ideal moment in time to sell them. Someone in the comments also mentioned that they thought we might need chunks of ancient ambergris for the new legendary, which actually doesn't seem that far-fetched to me. There's already a Leviathan spawn in the Janthir Century, and they have been used in Generation 3 legendary weapons before. Fishing is already one of the best repeatable solo gold per hour activities you can do. So if you run out of inspiration, try getting some ambergris, and don't forget about the 5 daily trade-ins either. If it turns out we don't need them for the spear, you'll still have made a good amount of gold, and if we do, you can probably sell them at a premium. Another great daily activity I keep rehashing is running around the Bjorn marches, gathering all eternal Ice Shards and opening all essence chests. And if you add doing the daily IBS 5 strikes to that list, you'll end up with a good amount of unidentified gear as well as eternal ice. You can then choose to trade in the latter for trophy shipments by exchanging them for Season 4 currencies and then consuming those for volatile magic. A trophy shipment currently yields about 1 gold of profit, but you can further increase that by upgrading materials they contain. I wouldn't necessarily upgrade to tier 5 bones and claws, but with these current prices, your spirit shards are basically worth 80 silver to 1 gold each. Every now and then I also reference one of my older farms, and while this one comes with a lot of caveats, it is worth farming special roots again. You can only get these from a cave in Corteria, and you will need a perma stealth build. The problem is that only 5 to 700 sell per day, so you can't farm these non-stop without breaking the trading post. On the plus side, farming 100 of them will literally take you 6 minutes, which you should be able to sell overnight, and effectively turns this into a 58 gold per hour farm. Last week, I also mentioned we should be keeping an eye out on the Maguma Black Lion weapon skins, as they've been added to the current rotation, and now seems like the perfect time to start putting in orders. If you manage to get all of them for the buy listing price, you'll pay just under 40 gold per ticket, or 47.5 if you choose to instant buy. These prices are well within range of the vintage Black Lion weapon boxes, which probably means that you will be able to recover their cost. You could also choose to get Void Corrupted skins for tickets instead, but since their prices are about the same as the boxes, I prefer the former as they sell in much higher volume. If you want to make even more gold from these skins, then check out the trading post guide I released last week, as you can also choose to keep some of the weapons, hoping that their price will increase once they are out of rotation. Lastly, if you have some Pack Scout mapping materials lying around, this is one of the best weeks to exchange them, as you'll make about 20 gold per 40, including trading post taxes. If you don't know what all of this means, there are 6 daily vendors spread around the map that will exchange these mapping materials for some karma, which you can then consume for map rewards by going to a specific location. I talk about these in my daily and weekly guide, so go check that out for more activities that are worth doing. That about concludes this week's update. It's a bit out of sorts, but I'll probably post a Throne and Liberty review from the perspective of a long-term Guild Wars 2 player, as it's another NCSoft title and I have a history of trying all of them out. In the meantime, I want to thank everyone again who decided to become a YouTube member or drop me a sub on Twitch, and I'll keep you up to date as to when I want to return to streaming on Discord.